Yeah. As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission. I'm on roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain. Keep on working, open curtains, haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never gonna give up, fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah.
You're listening to the Tom Ficklin Show on WNHH-LP 103.5 FM, your home for community radio.
Then let's just jump right in. It's really my pleasure to have Dr. Phil Gardner and Dr. to be Carol Magruder with us, and they're the I don't think I should say Adam and Eve, but in terms of the origin story for the African American Leadership Tobacco Control Leadership Council. I just wanted to start off with maybe, what is that origin story? I mean, when I looked at your background, Dr. Phil and Carl, it seems to me that you had full and robust lives before the starting of this, to say the least. So I was just curious about the kind of the origin story and what gravity or what synapse or what spirit kind of brought you guys together on this journey.
Yes. Should I go first, Dr. Phil?
Please.
Okay. So we both we've had 3 lives, 3 careers, more than that actually, and that have led us to this day. And I think the common thread is that we were both activists for our communities. And so I was an activist in high school in San Francisco for African Liberation Day, if you could, before when Rhodesia, before Zimbabwe was born and Rhodesia was still there, and apartheid. And one of my jobs when I was in high school was we had marches, and I was one of the people who helped to block the street off as the march proceeded. And so I took that to college, to San Francisco State University, where we spent a whole semester discussing whether we were going to be the Black Students Union or the Pan-African Students Union. And so we actually became the Pan-African Students Union. This is in the 70s, and I was one of the co-chairs. And so I've had that in everything that I've done. The love and the oppression and racism and discrimination, that fight for our people has been at the forefront. So I have worked in AIDS. I was the board president for the Black Coalition on AIDS in San Francisco for 7 years. I worked with Black infant mortality way before we're hearing so much about African American maternal mortality, but I worked with the California Black Infant Health Program for decades. I developed a parenting curriculum, and so the thread is the love of our people. And for me, this issue was really the stepchild to all of our other issues. It didn't get any attention. Everything else took the air from it, when it is one of our biggest problems, the #1 killer of Black people. And I just got into tobacco control really by a fluke. And when I learned about the predation and all that's gone on, then it's just, slowly taken over my life in these past 20 years. And so that's my story of how I got here.
Amen. The unabridged version. I love it. Dr. Phil, what's your claim to fame in this regard?
Well, I don't have any claim to fame. The short story is, I was walking after Martin Luther King was killed in 68, excuse me. It was a very tumultuous time. I was at the University of California, Santa Barbara. I remember walking to class in the fall and passing by the computer center where the Black Student Union had taken over the computer center, demanding Black studies. I said, that sounds right. I joined them. I've been in the fight ever since, with a period. And I'm going to stay in the fight for Black lives. Worked with the Black Student Union, worked with the Black Panther Party, worked on the African liberation stuff in the 1970s, went back to graduate school in the late 80s, got my doctorate. I guess my short story on the tobacco side is sitting at my desk in 1998, looking at the Surgeon General's report. That was at that time the only report that actually talked about racial minorities. And frankly, Tom, page after page after page, Black folks dying disproportionately from lung cancer, from heart attacks, from stroke, from COPD. It just went on. And I was like, excuse me. And so why is that? And then we come to find that the main vector into our community is not only tobacco but menthol. And that they've been doing this for 60 years, and they've been very consciously doing it and making money off killing Black folks. So it's a good fight. I mean, at some point we can drill down and give you, so how did we come together as AAGCLC? But that's, I think, that's the backstory for me.
Well, just, just for our readers, please maybe just share that, whether it was a cohesion moment or a series of circumstances that created the organization, because, yeah.
Sure. So so California and Dr. Phil actually was part of that infrastructure for our, we passed the tobacco tax back in 1999 at 25 cents, and that began funding this infrastructure that you see. And there are different branches of that.
88.
And was it? Well, that's right. Sorry, 88, because I was pregnant. Said my daughter's 35. So 80, not thank you, 1988. Prop 99 was the proposition. Right. So that added 25 cents. And that built out an infrastructure in California and engaged priority populations of which Black people are part of in a different way and gave us funding. And so with colored folks, there's no funding if there's not any public funding. It's not a cause that people are giving to, maybe now, but back in those days, if there wasn't public funding, there's no funding, there's no knowledge of this issue. And so the California Department of Public Health had all these programs, ethnic networks. And as we're more successful in our business, then the revenues go down because we get our revenue from the taxes off of the sale of cigarettes. And there was just a decision made by the California Department of Public Health to defund or to not refund all of the priority population leadership groups, of which we were one. And that was how we started. And now, we fought for a new tax. We're all kumbaya in the state again, and the state doesn't like us to tell that story. But I tell it because it's true. And I tell it because we're held up as kind of the poster children for what can be. But it's always a fight. And so our folks need to understand there's a fight within our own public health policy and public health professionals and colleagues. There's a fight with our own people. There's a fight with the government. And so we bound together and formed the African American Tobacco Control Leadership Council. And that was in 2008. And then in 2009, President Barack Obama signed the Tobacco Control Act. And that was when all the flavors, except for menthol, were taken off the market with the stroke of a pen. And that became one of the focuses, or the main focus of our work. We have other focuses as well, but that's how we started.
I mean, the short story is they cut the funding for the priority populations. And we happened to, I worked at the university, Carol worked at the community level, and a number of other colleagues worked in different parts. We decided we would continue to work together even though we didn't have money. But that the cause for Black folks was strong enough that we would do that. In fact, we spent the first couple of years traveling back and forth to Washington, D.C. on our own dime to testify at the Tobacco Product Scientific Advisory Committee meeting, arguing that they should get rid of menthol. You got rid of the rest of them. I mean, it was outright outrageous. And then for a Black president, the first one, maybe the only one in U.S. history to be the one who signed it, and he was a smoker too. It was very, very, very interesting. But here we are. Here we are.
Let's talk about here we are, and Dr. Phil and Carol. I've looked at some of your various YouTube presentations. Both you guys are in the public domain in terms of your history. your public stature. You've given speeches, keynotes, lectures, et cetera, et cetera. And as I look at all, and I've looked at several. I mean, you've been on national news. You've demonstrated. Um, what is your sense about where we are and where we want to go? And I say that in the context of even the last two surgeon generals have endorsed the menthol ban, not to mention the current surgeon general, not to mention the FDA report. So I guess I'm asking more of a let our hair down philosophical question, because all of us are. Carl, I know it's not appropriate to ask a lady her age, but all of us, I think it's fair to say, are members of AARP.
We're all members.
So we've crossed that threshold, and I think from and I've had a pleasure of recently, encountering and chatting with you guys. Um, where do we go from here? How do we pass that? But how do we pass that baton? Carl, when you mentioned San Francisco, my mind flashed back to Harry Edwards, and I'm sure you've encountered him. And when you mentioned the Panthers, and I mean that's Oakland Genesis. So just curious of how you want to spend the next 45 or so minutes. And I know Dr. Phil, you have to go, about passing that baton. Um, it's clear that people that are government, and there's some government officials in our favor and some not in our favor. So I'm just curious of what your thoughts are, as we, not to say that all three of us are in the eighth inning of our lives, or the seventh inning of our lives. Uh, but I'm curious about,
Bottom of the eighth.
I am curious about what's that kind of, not only metaphysical thoughts you have, but also spiritual thoughts, and also affirmations for where can we go from here on a structured and infrastructure basis.
Bill, you want to go first?
Not really, because no.
Okay. So with that, on that end, we are, we were going up the hill, and for us personally, myself, Dr. Phil, Dr. Val, we're getting ready to coast down the other side, and it's very important to us that this work continues beyond us. It's
Mhm.
very, very important, and that's where we are really at this stage of the game. As we fight, we're also building an infrastructure and an army of people across this country. And we've been able to do that for many reasons. But one of them is the largesse of the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation,
Right.
which funded us with some unrestricted funding and said, do what you need to do. And so part of that was a national leadership development program,
Right.
where we're really drilling down and recruiting folks of like mind, of different experiences. People don't necessarily have to know about tobacco control, but they do have to love their people and be in some type of a leadership role, or aspire to be, because we've also had young people. And so we are grooming, we are sharing our knowledge. We're traveling back and forth across this country to really get people to really understand what's going on, that this is something that's bigger than us. And Dr. Phil and I have both studied our African brothers and sisters, where you have the man at the top. And so we didn't want that to happen to our organization or to our cause, that we want to begin right now to transfer some of that leadership, some of that power, some of the ownership of this issue, because this issue belongs to all of us. And that's where we are right now, as we continue to fight and to maintain our leadership role, and suing the FDA and fighting across the country for cities and counties and states to enact the legislation that the FDA, that our federal government is afraid to, and to really educate our people, because we need, we've been working on the supply, but the demand, that our people need to understand that this is about killing us. This is about genocide. And we have to stop participating in that as smokers, and as some of our Black folks who take money from the industry and then carry the water for them and espouse their rhetoric.
Let me just emphasize the point Carol made, and Tom, I'm glad you've joined us and we've been able to work with you. The Quantum Leap development series that we're doing is pulling in people from all over the country, and it's been really invigorating. I must admit, and I'll just say this, the cohort that you're in, Tom, I mean, this is the third one. This is the most exciting one so far. And even though we have great people from all over, from other ones, this one, we ran our mouth all last week, remember? Oh, gotta go. So having that type of energy developed within the Black community toward getting rid of menthol is very important. Why is it so important? As you pointed out, all the science says it, all the leading health officials say it, everybody knows that this needs to be removed. Even most recently, and I sent it around, I don't know if I sent it to the cohort, Stan Glantz folks' new article showing that even if it isn't a menthol cigarette, there's still menthol in most cigarettes, and it still has the same properties of making it go down easier. And that's why they put it in there. So it needs to be, I mean, the FDA suggestion is essentially a half step. Yes, let's get rid of it as a characterizing flavor, but the punchline here is it needs to be gotten rid of as an ingredient. Okay. And so we need to be able to teach people that and to be aware of that. And unfortunately, but having been in the fight for a few years, this ain't going away anytime soon. I mean, we got all these people have agreed that this needs to go, and it gets to where it can actually stop. And the tobacco industry shows up in blackface and is dead, and we're just sitting here. We're suing them. We're doing work at the local, state, county, federal. As you pointed out, Surgeon General thinks it should be gotten rid of, and we're sitting here. So I would, I know it's still late in the inning for us, but it's still, we're still midway in the game and getting rid of this trash off the market. I'm going to shut up. Okay. All right.
Carl and Phil, jump for a little bit, if you could, to the lawsuit, the legal strategy, and to share with folks, even if the court that it's before endorses our appeal, is there an enforcement mechanism? What are we asking people to do? And even if the court says you should do this, is there any way of mandating that it happens? What's I'm really excited about the strategy, the legal strategy, but it's not clear to me what the enforcement, even if
it goes back to the FDA. If the court in the first place, the FDA hasn't done a damn thing, and the only reason they're doing something now is because we sued them. They've even put forward a rule, which I'm not going to spend my last minute going through. They put forward a rule. It's a weak rule, but it's a start. And if it is signed off by the president, then the Health and Human Services and the FDA have the ability to enforce it, to stop the production of menthol characterizing flavor. So there's a way to do this. There's national laws that actually will prevail in terms of this. Now, one of the problems with the existing legislation or the proposal, even though I said I wasn't going to do this, I'm going to do this anyway. It says that we can stop making the menthol cigarettes as characterizing flavor, but you can still make them for export. You know, you can't make it to be used in the United States, but you can use it to send around the world. Don't you think that's going to increase the amount of stuff that's run up I-95 from the south to where you live? If you're still making them, it's actually it's just actually ridiculous. Anyway, I'm gonna stop.
Carol, and as you know, when Dr. Phil says he's going to stop, you know what that means. He'll be back. He'll be back in 3 or so minutes. And I say that to bring smiles to both of your faces, hopefully, because regardless of what the tactic or strategy is, harmony among the group is the key. Is one of the keys. So I've observed you guys do the tag team as well as your other people, and I think there's so many purposes of this show. And we have about 40 more minutes, and Dr. Phil, I know you have to go, but how do you create harmony and inspire your team, your cohort, your friends and family? That's really So I want to jump to that for a second in terms of the psychological dimension and how you guys perceive what motivates people. Uh, we hear these terms, social determinants of
Yes.
health, and
And
I like. Please go
I
ahead.
think that that's so important and that it's something that we need to spend more time on as we work together in groups as people because we have a lot of issues when we work together. And I think that because Dr. Phil and I and Val, that our group we were mature and we had already been in groups where shit had gone south. And so, people fall out and so I think we brought that experience of how to work together and how to get along. And we have been doing that since 2008 and we're in 2024 right now. And I want to say that we're the face, but there's a whole group behind us and we have been meeting together monthly for 10 months out of 12 since 2008. And that we have a sounding board. We all have different opinions that we listen to and respect. And we decide, we have consensus and we decide which way we want to go and we go that way. And so we do our best, Dr. Phil and I and Dr. Val, to represent our council because there is a council behind us that's with us and who work very hard. Most of them are not compensated. And there, we all have family members. We all have a personal stake in this
Yeah.
because we've lived it. And I think that, as we move forward, that we have to spend time about, because we are, you didn't say Adam and Eve, we talk, we joke, but we're a family. And so, and the dynamic of folks needs to always be paid attention to and to be tended to.
I titled this show as a soft title, the an abolitionist strategy, and that was inspired, Carol, by your comments over the last 2 or 3 sessions that we've had that we don't use this term to be an abolitionist or to be a sojourner truth as much as we should. So it just struck me, and I mean, we can talk about genocide, et cetera, or just saving Black lives, but there's so many, the abolitionists were out here at Civil War came, but there are people that still, in spite of what government actions might be or government civil wars, we still have to maintain, our strategy and our fervor and our inspiration. Do you two, this is really off the record, guys, do you have any thoughts about spirituality in the context of our survival?
I pray a lot.
It goes back to your other question of how people have been held together. They're in the AATCLC. There's I would say, a full 100-degree spectrum of beliefs about different gods and things. And that has not become a discussion. What you feel about that is what you feel about that. And what we all have in common is the fight for Black folks. I was thinking back to Carol's answer about how we've been able to, I mean, I'll just be frank, I think part of why it is that women play a decisive role in the AATCLC. And even though I have a big mouth and since I can't walk, but used to travel all over the country running my mouth, when you came back to the collective, it was mainly a collective of women who had opinions, and that was a good thing. And I've learned from that, and I'm respectful of that. I guess Carol, the short story, Tom, is you should know I'm not particularly a religious person. I come out of the certain part of the 60s. That's not that important to me. I know a lot of ministers, I don't know anybody who isn't religious. Okay, most of my friends, most of my friends go to church every Sunday. Folks who come over to the house, we play dominoes on Thursday, and I go to other folks' house on Friday and play poker. They all go to church. People say, "Do you go to?" I say, "I'm between churches."
And Dr. Val and I, who traveled more together, We go to church, wherever we are, we pray. We had people praying for us on the road. So Reverend Carolyn Dyson is our personal pastor in California. If something was going on, we tell her to, get a prayer in. And so that has helped me personally.
Excellent.
It's strengthened me. It makes me unafraid and to be really fearless. There are lots of things going on. There are lots of little shenanigans that the tobacco industry plays. And I think that they have studied us and determined that we're kind of crazy and we're not afraid. And so whatever was going to jump off, we would confront it head on. And so, and I think that they have just kind of left us alone because of that. But I do pray, and with No Menthol Sunday, we visit churches, and that really helps me personally to accept what happens, to keep going, to know tomorrow's another day, and to move about the world without fear. I don't have fear.
Absolutely, absolutely. And definitely when you mention the prayer and it's prayer and faith in action, and Dr. Phil, I would say that your communion experience of dominoes and poker, those are communion experiences as well. So I think sometimes we it's a false dichotomy about the sacred and the secular. Every moment can be perceived to be a sacred moment.
I even talk to my friends about it. That's why we get together. I mean,
Indeed.
it's very reinforcing and communal, and I used to even cook.
Well, you could still cook an Uber or whatever, DoorDash can deliver the food to us. So because keep your options open. Dr. Phil, again, I know you have to go at any moment, so just please, you're excused when that comes.
I want to thank you. If just not to get too into the weeds, Tom, I did respond to the senator that you put me in touch with and ask him when it would be best to talk. If you could follow up with him, that would be great, and we can begin the process in Connecticut.
And absolutely, State Senator Gary Winfield, who's one of our legislators here in Connecticut, and very progressive, very conscious, I should say, and it's on the Judiciary Committee. I was a state representative prior to that. And in terms of my strategy here locally, as you know, I am an elected official, and it's a new experience for me. But it's just dawned on me that there's still so many more contacts we can make, and so much more synthesis we can build. So definitely, we'll follow up.
Make sure I send it to the right. I said the right name and all of that.
Oh, you did, yeah.
Okay, and we should also talk about New Haven, and where you are, and so this is good. And I gotta go.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you,
sir. On for you, Carol.
All right. See you later, Dr. Phil.
Right.
Thank you, sir.
We're on for 9, Carol.
Correct.
Okay. All right, folks.
Thank you, Dr. Phil.
All right.
Carl, I had mentioned your name to a friend here in New Haven. Every October they do a Sister's Journey breast cancer awareness event, and it's held at one of our casinos. And they're a small group, but they pack 500 to 600 people per year at our casino, one of the casinos, either Foxwoods or Mohegan Sun. And it just occurred to me that whether we're talking about tobacco or infant mortality or cancer, that all these words are just really symbols for the basic issue of survival. And that's where I kind of offered up your name as a possible speaker. And I had to even talk to you about you being willing to do that, but it's just something I felt inspired to do.
Sure. And I always would be. I think that date didn't work, but I'm always, anything that you want to send my way, we always would consider it. And if I can do it, I will. And
I really appreciate that. So weave in a little bit the interconnection, because people, I think, I'm involved with a health fair and this weekend, next weekend, and we're throwing these terms at people, diabetes and hypertension and prostate, and sometimes it might even get distracting versus just what does it mean to be whole as a species. And when you mention your background with AIDS and et cetera, talk to us a little bit about that, about really just self-discipline and leaning on folks and securing help when you need it.
Yes, and all of these things that I've worked on, because they're symptoms
Mm-hmm.
of the real issue. And so, and the real issue is about having healthy, whole communities, and healthy, whole communities that support an individual's choice. Because we
Yes.
talk about our choices, everyone is, you're responsible for your choices that you make. And I think that that is not true. That there, it's two sides to that. And the bigger side of your choices are the choices that are put before you and that
Mm.
are normalized, and that people do imitate what they see other people do. And so if you
Mm.
grow up in a community like where I grew up, we had lots of liquor stores on every corner. We had just that these were just things that you did when you got a certain age. And so, my saving grace was I just came from a family that was just very different. We had moved into our neighborhood when I was, in middle school. And so, it just was not alluring to me. And I can say that, like I smoked in college. I've certainly done different things as a teenager, and I frankly talk about that. But we bussed ourselves out of our neighborhood to a better school in San Francisco
Mm.
using my grandmother's friend's address in another neighborhood. And it
Mm.
took quite, and I organized that by myself at the age of 14 years old. Verifying where the address, what school district, and had a false start and had to go back. So just the determination, but driving past where I was growing up out into the avenues, which is the high school that I attended, where there just weren't any liquor stores out there. There just wasn't, the normalcy of it. And so, let me say this, that, as we've just seen this trial with President Biden's son.
Yeah.
Of course, this man is the son of a senator. He's had every privilege, every privilege, every exposure, and he still ended up as a crack addict.
Mm.
Which shows that addiction is no respecter of persons,
Mm-hmm.
and that when people try addictive substances, they will become addicted to them. And that's what, bringing it back to the tobacco industry.
Yes.
That's what this industry has had their grips on us for all of these decades, including coming over here as enslaved people, just unashamedly. And that as we work to dial this back to get these products off the market, as I said, the education of our people, that to reject, tobacco, to reject sweetened beverages, our biggest contributor,
Mm.
diabetes. There's so many things that appear to be innocent that really harm us,
Mm-hmm.
and so we need to have healthier communities. We need to really prioritize that. We need to make it fun and interesting. Health does not
Yes.
have to be boring.
Yeah.
And I think that, when the public health fight, because most public health messages are so boring that they actually repel people, and it really repel the people who we're trying to really reach. And so we have to shift that, and that, we can have fun and a good time without killing ourselves, and without
Mm-hmm.
paying people to kill ourselves, because we're
Mm-hmm.
paying people to kill ourselves.
We have about 10 or 15 minutes. Tell me, and really appreciate with the time difference, it's early for you where you are. Uh, uh, well, and if you were on the Joy Reid show, or I won't say Al's show, although I think he should consider being on Al's show if he would let you on, what questions would they ask, or say it a different way, what questions have you not been asked when you've been on the circuit? And I don't say that pejoratively, but on the Freedom Trail
Yes.
circuit.
So the questions I haven't been asked, and I want to backtrack, because
Okay.
the word that you use, abolition.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something we talk about, because when we say prohibition is stopping something, and abolition is freeing us from something.
Yes.
And that is really the word that we want to embrace and to use more. And so what I don't get asked about is the work that we're doing that we call the end game. And so the end game is dismantling this whole beast, because as we see, we have, we got the Newport cigarettes, we fight to get that off, and then they put a new product on with chemicals that mimic the cooling effect of menthol, but technically are not menthol. So then we'll have to fight that. We've got hookah. Hookah is all over. My daughter is in Atlanta, a young adult, and you can't. I've seen hookah in Atlanta everywhere except for at a church and a nursery school. Those are the only two places I haven't seen it. And hookah is deadly. It's addictive. We've got and hookah is really big in Africa now, and we've got vaping. That's the other one. So we can fight, all these different heads of this same beast, or we can understand that it's one and the same, and that somehow we have this notion that it was okay that these products are legal, and that, it's okay, and that we're going to incrementally dial it back. And so we have to have a new paradigm, a new mindset, that these products, they need to go. We don't need to debate and study if vaping is better for you, if it's harm reduction. It's about money. Hookah is about money, and it's about the detriment of our people. And so we want to talk about abolition, and part of that abolition is through the International Convention for the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, which is an international treaty. And that treaty was really voted on because of our struggles for civil rights in this country. That's how it came about. It's 50 years old. And as I was doing my research on it, I didn't even know that. That was how it was passed, was from the world witnessing what we were experiencing in this country, the brutality, as we tried to fight for our basic human and civil rights. And so, and that fight continues. And so as part of, we want to put these products under that umbrella, the targeting that's been done to our people, and bring that back as one of our tools, and just to really educate people that this is about abolition. And that when we were taught, when the fight for the abolition of slavery, there were a whole bunch of people said, well, we have all this money invested in these slaves, and this is our economy, and well, what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? And just as with tobacco, with the taxes, tobacco taxes pay for our children's federal health insurance program. They pay for roads in different states and cities. And most of the tax that's on cigarettes has nothing to do with helping the poor victim, the poor person who's addicted to these products and dying, helping them to get off. It's about that goes into a general fund. And so we want to dial that back. So not only do our people who are addicted to smoking have to get off of it, but also our governments who are addicted to tobacco taxes and the roles that play in the budgets of all of our cities and counties and states across this country, that's going to go. And I also say that, when we fund tobacco prevention and control, it's one of the few things that's funded by taxing the people who are afflicted by it. So for breast cancer, we don't have a broad tax, and that's how we fund breast cancer research and treatment. And so the government needs to be putting money into this as a health issue that touches every other health issue that we have. So if you're diabetic, if you're high blood pressure, all of that exacerbates, and our government, we actually pay more on the other end through healthcare and death of people than we're benefiting from these taxes, or from the largesse of the tobacco industry, these little crumbs that they give our people, who should be trying to fight on our side and fight for services and help for our people, instead of fighting to keep the deadliest addictive product on the market, which is these tobacco products, to fight for them rather than fight for a true solution to the issue. And taking them off the market is just a part of that solution. It's not magic. It's not magic. And then I wanted to also backtrack a little bit further, because when we talk about the long haul, we've been fighting for voting rights. Voting Rights Act was passed 50 some odd years ago, and we're still, fighting for that. And so, back to Atlanta, where my daughter, I was down there, and she got up really early. I said, where are you going? She was going to vote because she wanted to get ahead of the line. And so in Atlanta, where she's voting, there's a line, and it's illegal to give people water in the line now. That's the law that Georgia passed. And there's Larry Davidson, the show Curb Your Enthusiasm. He had a whole episode on that, where he just gave this woman a bottle of water and was arrested. And, it's a comedy. It's silly.
Yes.
But the point is that they're doing everything they can to reverse that. We never have had one man, one woman, one vote. They do everything they can to chip away at our numbers, and that's an ongoing fight. And this is an ongoing fight, and this will be that. It's not magic that if this FDA rules came out tomorrow, that's the beginning of the end, not the end. And there are many things that are going to need to happen to undo the harm, the irreparable harm that's been done. And the other thing, reparations. So if I was on with Joy Reid, or if I was on the right Reverend Al Sharpton, I would say, do you feel the tobacco industry owes Black people reparations for the million Black people who have died in the past 20 years? That's just 20 years. So do you feel the tobacco industry owes our community some money? As the Marie Evans case, where Marie Evans, her son he received $79 million. This is in Boston in our lifetime. So what are we due? And would you be willing to fight for that? Would you be willing to fight for reparations? That's what reparations is, what we're talking about now all over the country. And California is really making some great strides.
Yes.
So I'd ask Reverend Al, I'd ask Dr. Ben Chavis, would you be willing to fight for reparations from the tobacco industry for our people? What do you think about that?
My pause is really a pause of admiration for your verve and your passion so early in the morning. So thank you for that. Let's jump to messaging for a second. My sense is, Carl, and again, we have about 10 more minutes, and as any thoughts occur to you, my sense is that young people, and I use that term broadly, that young people do see the system to be stacked against them, and to be many young people, and to be and that they're targeted, that Black lives do not matter. Many of the young people that I've spoken with, say under 30, have just embraced that theory, that belief so much that it's almost paralyzed them. Because just as this show will be widely disseminated, and I have a lot of young people that listen, and when they hear what you've just said in such a cogent and thoughtful and correct and accurate fashion, it kind of reinforces their belief. My mind goes to Francis Cross Welsing kind of thing, and the evil. So, and I'm so glad you referenced your daughter, who is still active. But there's that tension about how do we psychologically keep people in tune with in spite of how they perceive the obstacles, whatever they perceive those obstacles to be. I know I'm not asking a specific question, but I wanted to kind of come back to the psychological.
I get what you're saying. And so this is for young people, and it can be discouraging. And I'm hopeful. I'm always a hopeful person. And when I'm having a bad day, I tell myself, Carol Magruder, you are a free woman. No one is beating you. You're not chained in a field. No one is raping you. And that whatever my issues are, whatever societal rules or issues are against me, that I have the ability to overcome that, and that we are at the best place that we've ever been in this country, and that there is opportunity here. I've traveled, I've lived all over the world, and I have many problems with my country, the United States of America, but I also know that there are opportunities here that many people do not, and that you can do what you want to do in your life. You absolutely can. And and for young people, with colleges and student loans, you can learn how to do anything you want to do with the internet. And so if you have a dream, I want people to go to school, but at the same time, everybody doesn't have to go to school to be successful. And you can start living your dream right where you are. Instead of scrolling on your phone on TikTok, you can scroll on your phone and say, how do I do this? Yes. What do I need to do that? And I say, when you see someone, and it doesn't matter what color they are, when you see someone doing what you want to do, ask them, how did you get where you are? because I didn't get where I am in a traditional way at all. And so people have an idea that you need to do this, you need to do that, and that's less and less true. And we do see so many young African American entrepreneurs who are, who are
Yeah.
doing it. And so, and I just want to encourage our people that the money that we spend with other people, the money that we spend on cigarettes, that could buy houses, that could buy college educations, that could start businesses. And I encourage folks who are stopping, put that money aside and just see
Mhm.
how it grows. And if you're in a position, do something positive with it.
Yes.
Give it to a college, give it to someone in your own family that you see that's trying to get ahead. We need to
Mhm.
have more scholarships in our own family to help the folks
Mm.
who are trying to make it, so they don't get to the end of the road of these college degrees and have $100,000 worth of debt, that they have to wade through for the rest of their lives.
Yes.
So, in spite of all that we see, and it's such a crazy time, and it is depressing, but we have to dig in there, and we have to know
Yes.
that the reason they're doing all that they're doing is because we have risen up,
Mm.
because there was a
Mm.
Barack Obama.
Mm.
And so the pendulum in this country, it swings this way and then it swings back the other way. And we need to anticipate that and prepare for it, so we're not so deflated when
Mhm.
we think, okay, we're getting it together. And then they muster all they can to push us back down, to tamp us back down. And so we need to know that that is history. That's what
Mhm.
happens, and to be ready for that, and to keep going and to persevere. So
Mm.
what we're seeing now is, the legacy. This is part of the legacy of Barack Obama, that they're like, this cannot happen, to stop people from being educated. I think when I talked about San Francisco State University, how that changed my life, taking ethnic studies classes, taking Black
Mhm.
studies classes. And they want to stop that because they know that it's powerful. And so, but you don't have to go to university to get that. You can get it online. We have more
Mhm.
Black books written by Black people, and they're the libraries. So for that, we need to educate ourselves for young people, and have joy in your life, and have happiness in
Yes.
your life, and pace yourself. It's not a race. So to make sure that you're having some fun in your life, you're not just, so focused that you're miserable, but that you live your life, and you know that it's a progression. It's a
Mhm.
progression, but that you can do whatever, people can do whatever you want to do. I don't care what your circumstance is. People, we have the power to change our lives, and we have the power to fulfill our dreams and our goals. It might take longer than we hope, but we all have that power, and I really believe that.
Excellent. Excellent. Let's spend as we wind down, Carl, in terms of cessation and um, people that want to have the desire to stop smoking or be addicted to whatever substance. Uh, what efforts should be made to kind of help folks to kind of recover and refine and redefine themselves?
That's a wonderful question. And so, because we had such a lack of really culturally appropriate and tailored cessation, we've gotten into that space more, and we'll be getting into that space more. So we are reframing, um, that you're not what you're giving up, what you're getting
Mm.
when you stop
Mm.
smoking. What do you
Mhm.
gain? And that, how, so looking at different ways. And we have Dr. Karen Beard, who's the head of our cessation team, and I also do some things around cessation that are more political than health oriented, because it's about motivation. It's about what your mindset is for
Mhm.
change, and how change happens. And so we want to encourage people to get into that space, and to, just as you see so many health entrepreneurs, and there's money to be made, all
Mhm.
these things, these are jobs and occupations and careers for people who can see that, because all the money that you're spending on cigarettes, those people could be spending that on health
Mhm.
if they
Mhm.
just get turned in a different direction. And so how do you motivate people to turn them in the different direction, and then be there to help them with services? So we are talking now about assertive cessation. And assertive cessation is having our medical system look at cessation in a different way, and to be more, not aggressive about it, because a smoker, can get turned off, but to be more assertive about it, and to
Mm.
not wait for someone to come in. A person is a diabetic, you're going to really try to reach out to them to get them insulin or whatever they need. You're not going to just say, okay, well, they'll come and get it when they want it, and that does happen in some places in the country, unfortunately. But we want to really be there for people in a different kind of way and involve them in the process. And one thing is that for my work in San Francisco, we had smokers who worked in our advocacy projects, and they would quit because it creates cognitive dissonance in your mind. And so without preaching, without even dealing with that, from getting into advocacy, because whatever addiction habit I have that I know is not good, I don't want to pass that on to my family, to my children. I want to do what I can to change that. I want to be a role model that it's possible. And so, and this is one of the things that we talk with smokers, and any other thing that you're doing that you don't want your child to do. That's your barometer. Is how do you change that? And it's through love and support, that through building the beloved community. And so that's what we're bringing to this. It's not a health intervention of, well, when's your quit date? What are your triggers? All that's important, but it's also important to feel that someone cares about you and someone is connected to you and someone needs you to be healthy and to be alive. That's part of our strategy that we have for our community. And so we'll be doing that. So our website that has our cessation service information is amplify.love. That's the actual website, amplify.love. Everything that we do is free. Some of the programs that we actually have stipends, or we have an incentive for our smokers. And that's a method that's been proven to help people, is to give them a little money to quit. But our government, and so that's something that Ben Chavis and Al Sharpton could tell our government, what kind of services are you going to be providing? And I tell a Black smoker, you've already paid for every service. You paid for massage, acupuncture, therapy, and all those taxes you paid in those cigarettes. You have already paid for that. And now you need to come and demand it, and you need to get it. And we want to help facilitate that, but we want our smokers to say, I want services.
Excellent. I was about to say I wanted to give you the last word, but I think you've touched upon that. But as we move into July 4th, and my mind goes to, as you were chatting about taxation without representation, we're going to have all these July 4th celebrations, which were largely, about that as well as other matters. But we still are, this system of taxation without representation, even if you want to go back to Mary and Joseph, kind of going somewhere to pay their taxes and issues around that, and not having a place to stay. So it's just, Carl, thank you so much. Any kind of closing comment that you like to make?
Thank you. I just appreciate you so much. And I just want to say that there is no group that loves a Black smoker more than the African American Tobacco Control Leadership Council. That's why we exist. It's for our Black smokers. So don't let anybody tell you that we're trying to hurt you. We're trying to take something away from you. We are trying to help our community. We need you to be alive. We need you to be alive for your family, for your children, your grandchildren. We all have a role to play in our communities, and we want to help you to be healthy and happy and be able to enjoy the other side of AARP. We're members. And so when they send a card, when you first turn 50, you're like, how do they know my birthday? But we want people to enjoy those years and not suffer and suffer through them, and to have a good quality of life, to be able to walk around the block, to be able to pick your grandchildren up. When you can't breathe, nothing else matters. And so we love our smokers, our menthol smokers. We do this for you and your families and our communities. And we're gonna see this thing through. We're gonna see it through. Absolutely.
Excellent. Carol, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll see you in a few hours as well.
Okay. All right. Okay. Bye-bye.
As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission. I'm gonna roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going. Better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gonna be counting blessings. And I know that for certain. Keep on working, open curtains. Haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never gonna give up. Fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah.
You're listening to the Tom Ficklin Show on WNHH LP 103.5 FM, your home for community radio.